80% of known metabolic functions require magnesium. 80%. That's new research. And if you don't have enough magnesium, you don't have your energy. Your muscles tighten up. We have 600 muscles. They all can tighten up. So you could have 600 different diseases based on your muscles.
All right, ladies, I would love for Dr. Carolyn Dean if you could just introduce yourself in your words and why you are equally, if not more so, obsessed with magnesium than me.
Okay, first of all, Leah, call me Carolyn. Okay. And I guess my history is as a teenager, I was very interested in health and nutrition and lifestyle. And this is going way back, we're talking the 60s. And there was a point where nobody would listen to me. And I was in a city, Halifax, Nova Scotia, where they had a med school. And I guess by this time I was in honors biology. And then a couple of young guys in my class said, we just got accepted. Did you get accepted? And, I said, well, I feel pretty accepted. What's up? And they had just been accepted into medical school, these silly young men. By that time, I was in my mid-20s. And I just, it's just a light bulb went off in my head. So I marched over to the dean of med students to the medical school. And in the office was my former guidance counselor, Miss Elliott, working for the dean of medicine. So I said, well, you got some splaining to do. Why did you tell me that I should be an executive secretary or a nurse when I should be a doctor? So she happened to be on the medical school acceptance committee. She, showed me all the ropes, and I just had to do 2 more courses. And I got accepted immediately on just passing those courses. It was like smooth. I didn't, kind of obsess from age 12 that I wanted to be a doctor. When I decided I wanted to be a doctor, I became a doctor. It was so awesome. And I didn't get dissuaded. I mean, they certainly tried to dissuade me. They teased me about making my yogurt. I wasn't a hippie or anything. I was just a health person. And I thought back then, Leah, that within 10 years, all doctors would be looking at diet and nutrition and really help people. No, none of that happened. It just went dark side into big pharma. And I kept on. During my internship, I started my post-grad naturopathic training. So when I went into practice in 1979, I practiced as a naturopath with a medical license. So, I was able to do testing and whatnot. When I sent people for x-rays or even surgical referrals, the doctors quickly learned that, well, if Dean is sending us something, it means it's important. So I just, I flowed with it. It was awesome. And right from the beginning, it was nutritional medicine. But then over the years, my yeast overgrowth acted up, my magnesium deficiency acted up. I didn't know I had magnesium deficiency until I was in New York in 1993.
Hey, that was the year I was born.
Oh, look at that. I know. I've been biohacking and doing this stuff since before most of you guys were born. Exactly.
You're the OG.
So I know. So in 1993, I was in New York doing AIDS and chronic fatigue research, using alternative modalities. And I was on local TV, New York TV. I was on The View doing all this stuff until the direct-to-consumer advertising came on TV, and they said, well, we can't have, these people on talking about things other than drugs. So it shifted everything. And Random House, through a friend who knew an editor, Random House asked me to write a book on magnesium. 300-page book. And I really thought, even though I had my naturopathic degree and, whatever little bit of nutrients I learned in med school, I thought 300 pages, how can I write about one mineral? But it didn't take me more than a minute to realize that, my headaches and neck tension and eye twitching and Charlie horse leg cramps and then heart palpitations was all related to magnesium deficiency. So I wrote the book, became an expert in magnesium, but finding the magnesium for myself was very difficult. And this is what we're up against with a lot of our, clients, customers, patients. You can't find a magnesium that's non-laxative. So when I said, oh my gosh, I've got magnesium deficiency, and I started to, slug down the magnesium supplements, I got the laxative effect, serious laxative effect. I lost 10 pounds trying to take magnesium supplements. And so what I did after the book was published was try to find a mineral company that would make a research and make a non-laxative magnesium. They wouldn't. And finally, I found a chemist. And then that's how I got into the supplement business. At an age when I should have been retiring, I got into the supplement business for myself. But then I passed on the goods. And that's the crucial part, Leah. 80% of known metabolic functions require magnesium. 80%. That's new research. And if you don't have enough magnesium, you don't have your energy. Your muscles tighten up. We have 600 muscles. They all can tighten up. So you could have 600 different diseases based on your muscles. Your nerves go spastic and irritated and fire constantly. We have 45 miles of nerves in our body. So those two things are huge: energy, muscles, and nerves. And then you look at all the metabolic functions where you think there's about, 1,300 enzymes, biochemical enzymes in the body, but I really haven't been able to pin it down. So when I did a little bit of math and said 80% of 1340, that's about 1,000 enzyme processes. So you're looking at blood sugar control. You're looking at all the hormones. You're looking at the thyroid, estrogen production, the pituitary, HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary, adrenal axis. So all these people, they're getting anxiety, we're all in a constant PTSD these past few years. Well, it means we're draining our magnesium. So that's what I have to say as my opening salvo.
No, people on here, I hope, are no stranger to magnesium, because I talk about it a lot, because it's one of the supplements where I'm like, you could truly pull this out of my cold, dark, dead hands, because it makes such a big difference if you get it right, and you get your cofactors in there, because it impacts so much. And we're just, we're not getting enough in through our food and our dietary. And it's one of the ones I would say, I don't want to say everyone needs something, but I would say generally it's something I would highly recommend looking into to see if you need it. So could we go over, just for someone who's let's say they know nothing about magnesium, what are symptoms of magnesium deficiency? How would you know maybe you should look in that area?
Well, I already alluded to it, and it seems overwhelming, when you go to a doctor and say, I'm not sleeping, I have no energy, I get headaches, I have my eye twitches. When I swallow a big vitamin pill, I kind of choke on it. That's a muscle spasm in your esophagus. Yeah. I get asthma when I work out. Well, that's your muscles cramping up when you're breathing deep.
Yeah.
I get leg cramps. I get the restless leg syndrome. When I stretch at night in bed, I get Charlie horse cramps. I have heart palpitations. You go to a doctor with all those magnesium deficiency symptoms, and they're going to say, oh, well, you need an anti-anxiety drug and maybe an antidepressant as well. As soon as you say, oh, I'm so tired, the doctors don't know that the Krebs cycle in your mitochondria requires magnesium in order to make ATP energy. The researchers say ATP is really ATP-MG because it's attached to adenosine triphosphate. So it's just for me, it's the complete picture of what I've termed total body meltdown, where the body just, you're so tight and irritated and irritable. You can't sleep if your muscles are tight. You can't get that deep, relaxing sleep. So you wake up tired and then you push yourself, and then we get into, oh, well, let's drink some coffee. I mean, I can't believe how addicted our society is to coffee. I cannot believe it. When I live in Maui, and when I do my beach walk in the morning, everybody's walking with their cup of coffee and their phone in one hand and their coffee in the other, addicted to both of them. So people need uppers, and then a lot of people get addicted to sleeping pills because they're so wired, either, from the coffee and from the magnesium deficiency, so wired they need something to knock them out and put them to sleep. So it's a terrible vicious cycle. And then, when you look at, well, I've written in my latest magnesium book, I had to make a smaller book, Leah. My second edition of the Magnesium Miracle was 600 pages.
Oh my goodness.
So I made a smaller book, and in there I have over 65 medical conditions, medically diagnosed conditions that require drug therapy.
Wow.
That could be magnesium deficiency.
That's crazy.
So that's crazy. So what you're doing, you have migraines, and you take the most horrendously toxic migraine drugs that barely help, and you get more toxic. Or, you go, here's the scenario, a common scenario. You're stressed out and you go to the doctor for your annual or whatever, and the nurse or nurse practitioner, or maybe the janitor, somebody takes your blood pressure because they take it with your clothes on. It's so crazy now in the hospitals. So anyway, your blood pressure seems high, and on the chart, oh, it's been high for a little while, Mrs. Jane Smith, we should put you on a diuretic because it looks like you're getting high blood pressure. No, you're stressed, and the smooth muscles around your arteries have tightened up and decreased the volume, the cylindrical size of your arteries, and which puts pressure on your blood, and you have high blood pressure. It's simple biomechanics. So you're put on a diuretic, and they say, be sure to eat a banana or take an orange for the potassium. But they don't tell you you're losing magnesium. They don't tell you that because there's no blood test for magnesium on your electrolyte panel. So they ignore magnesium because it's always in this tight range. Oh, it's always the same. Let's leave it alone. Yeah. But that's because the body's smart enough to pull magnesium from your bones and your soft tissues if it's low, because your heart would, collapse without magnesium. So you do the diuretic, you come back in a month. Oh, how's your blood pressure? Oh my gosh, it's elevated. We caught your blood pressure just in time. They've caused more tension on your blood vessels because you've lost more magnesium from your diuretic. Their way of treating blood pressure is, well, let's decrease the volume of blood and let's dehydrate you. So it's crazy. No common sense. So then your blood pressure's more elevated. They just caught it in time, so they put you on a calcium channel blocker.
Oh, no.
Now, we haven't talked about this yet, but magnesium is a calcium channel blocker. It pushes calcium out of the cells. It pushes calcium into cells to create the muscle action or the nerve action potential, and then it pulls calcium out. If you don't have enough magnesium to do that, your calcium builds and builds and builds and excites those cells to death. So they give you a drug calcium channel blocker that has, its list of like 50 to 100 side effects, and also an ACE inhibitor that's got to do with aldosterone and the kidneys and all kinds of biochemistry, which really doesn't help that much if your blood pressure is due to magnesium deficiency. You come back in 3 months, you get your blood tested to make sure the drugs aren't harming your liver. And then, oh my gosh, look what we found. Your blood sugar's elevated. We'll have to put you on metformin for diabetes prevention. And oh my gosh, your cholesterol is elevated. We'll have to put you on a statin. And that's because those two functions are balanced by proper amounts of magnesium. The HMG-CoA reductase enzyme that helps create or break down cholesterol, that is killed by statin drugs, just killed outright. So your cholesterol goes down, and then you lose your ability to make hormones, because you need cholesterol to make hormones and also to help make your cell membranes. So that's all gone with statin. And then you have terrible muscle aches and pains with statins. But diabetes, in our allopathic medical text, it says that one of the signs of diabetes is low magnesium. Seriously. But nobody pays attention to it. And part of that, Leah, is when the original magnesium studies were done, they were done on magnesium oxide.
Oh.
And that was because a really smart lady, entrepreneur who owned a magnesium oxide company, she gave thousands of bottles of magnesium oxide to researchers. So all the original studies are on magnesium oxide. You read them, and even though magnesium oxide is only 4% absorbed, it's a serious laxative, it still worked because the body needs magnesium so desperately, and 60 to 80% of us are deficient in magnesium. We'll grab anything. So doctors, even if they see it in their journals about magnesium and diabetes, they won't give it after a time or two, because they'll give magnesium oxide, and then their patients will complain about diarrhea. So that's the end of that. And then it's back to the drug.
Oh my gosh. So you just dumped so much gold on us that we need to back up. We have a very smart audience here, and I just can hear them all kind of chuckling because they all know somebody that has a med, and then a med for their med, and then another med for the first two meds. And my husband works in healthcare, and he said it's just crazy how many meds people are on. He's like, I have to spend so much time, documenting, all of these side effects for the first side effects that they got put on for the first medication. And so then you end up on thousands and thousands of dollars of medication, and all of these side effects that just keep piling up and piling up and piling up. And you ask your doctor, well, is there something I could change, in my lifestyle? And they're like, no, here's another medication. And it just blows my mind when I'll have clients come in who, like you said, they had a blood panel done. They're like, well, I don't need magnesium because my blood panel said it's fine. I'm like, well, magnesium's not even stored there. So why would we be testing that without looking at everything else that shows how we're using magnesium? So it's immediately pushed off their radar. And then on top of that, we're not even looking at the fact that the medications they're on in the first place are depleting magnesium. Like birth control, for example, really depletes magnesium. And it's just, I don't know. Like, why? I'm glad that we're talking about this, but it's like, why do we wonder, like, healthcare is not actually healthcare? It's just sick care. If you actually want to get healthy, you got to get out of that model.
Yes, like I said, I thought there was a possibility when I was in med school, but all my peers, they poo-pooed anything I said when I said, well, I just read this paper that breast milk is much better for infants than bottled milk. I mean, the pediatrician at the front of the theater where we had our lectures, he called me Bubbles. He said, "Oh, Bubbles, don't worry about that. We've got this scientific bottle formula." And so it it was like the peer pressure in a medical school environment where, you had to be pro drugs, and anything alternative that was not covered in our medical school education, it was obvious that it wasn't important because, man, did we have to. I mean, we had to study. I studied, 4 straight years, but yeah, and it'll never change. It really will never change because Big Pharma has control now of all the research funding in universities and hospitals. And they only study supplements if they know it's going to show that the supplement is bad for you. And the whole FDA environment is they get half of their funding from drug companies paying them fees. I don't know if it's user fees, but fees to follow their research, to um, participate in their research. 50% of the FDA funding comes from Big Pharma. And so then what does the FDA do to me and my dietary supplement company? They come around and try to find problems. And when they don't, they create problems. And they have said to me personally, you are not allowed to have testimonials on your website saying that your dietary supplements help disease, because only drugs can treat or heal. They even use the word heal. Only drugs can heal disease. And if you say your magnesium, and I can't even, on your show, when I get interviewed, I can't even mention my product names. And if I say my magnesium or a testimonial says it helps your blood pressure, headaches, anxiety, depression, if they say anything like that, then I'm making a medical claim. And in order to make a medical claim, I have to do the $1 billion drug trial that proves that such and such happens. Now, what's interesting is the only health claim you can make with magnesium is hypertension. So that's partly why I tell the hypertension scenario of, Joe or Jane that goes to the doctor, because, okay, yeah, if they had taken magnesium for their hypertension, they wouldn't have gotten to that level of, 4 drugs and getting into total body meltdown. Because, when I was in med school in the mid 70s, we were told, prescribed drugs, that's fine. You know what to do. You have a symptom, you have a disease, you give a drug, but you only give it for as short a time as possible until the person, kind of revives themselves or whatever. So that's what we were taught, as short a time as possible. But in the past 15, 20 years, and your husband would know this, drugs are now lifetime. You need a lifetime blood pressure drug, a diabetes drug, a cholesterol drug, lifetime drugs. And that's big money. That's follow the money right there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just following the money. Like, we'll watch a TV show, and especially with the line of work that we both have, the ads are hilarious, and it's crazy because, they paint this beautiful picture of, a mom playing with their kids and how this medication got rid of her migraines and she's finally able to like hang out with her kids. And then the beautiful scene is still playing. And then the speaker's voice all of a sudden goes really, really fast. And they're like, and you can expect these side effects. And it's like, it just keeps going. I'm like, did you hear all of those side effects? Because I don't want any of those. So of course, let's not talk about anything else because, that's not where the money is. So anyways, so what kind of magnesium should people, be looking for? Or can we talk about your magnesium without getting you in trouble?
Sure, I would like that. Thank you. I think, Leah, because I'm a medical doctor and I've written the book and everything, I track people who have a lot of problems and they're on a lot of medications and they're very sensitive also. So because of my sensitivity and, I talk about it, the magnesium that I created is non-laxative. What I was able to do with this extraordinary chemist is make a magnesium that's a stabilized ion of magnesium that stays as an ion in this liquid bottle for years at a time. We're in the process and have done university studies on absorption so that we can actually, a sidebar here, we're focused on trying to educate the magnesium research public that an ionized magnesium test is far superior to a serum magnesium or even an RBC red blood cell magnesium. An ionized magnesium test is picking up the ions that are in the body that are measurable because it's a picometer size ion of magnesium that's able to get into cells. Anything bigger is not going to get into cells. So what this chemist in an 18-step process, he's able to stabilize the ion to the point where in studies where they shine, it's called a Zeta-sizer, Zeta-sizer. It's like a laser that goes through a liquid to size up the material substance in a liquid. And when you shine a Zeta-sizer through my magnesium, it doesn't bounce off anything. There's no material matter. So the compound is gone. It comes from a magnesium chloride compound, which is the best magnesium. The compound is gone. It's just the stabilized ions, and those ions get into the cells. So people are then able to take enough magnesium to saturate, get rid of medications, which is what the FDA hates, and not have the laxative effect. When I was dealing with my realization that I needed magnesium to function. I mean, I was very high functioning. I was running this lab. I was making homeopathic remedies. I was treating AIDS patients. I was having a great time in New York. And my mother thought I was a missionary because I was in New York for one thing. But anyway, I could only take about 50 milligrams of magnesium without getting the laxative effect. I was using magnesium oils and creams and anything. My skin was getting all irritated trying to get magnesium. When I got my non-laxative, I call it a picometer magnesium, I was able to take 1,200 milligrams from 50 to 1,200.
That's a lot.
I needed 1,200 for a year and a half before I was fully and completely done with all my magnesium deficiency symptoms, including daily heart palpitations. And my symptoms, they subsided quite quickly, leg cramps and whatnot. But the heart palpitations, what I did is I waited until I could go 2 days without taking any of my magnesium, and none of my symptoms came back. And during the last maybe 6 months, I needed less and less magnesium. If I took the it was 4 teaspoons. If I took the 1,200 milligrams right now, I would get severe laxative effect. I only need 450 milligrams right now, which is the RDA, because I'm saturated. So it's, when your body needs a nutrient, it doesn't keep needing more and more and more like you do drugs in order to cause an effect. You need what the body requires to do its metabolic functions.
Yeah. Well, I often, like when you're going through a healing phase, we often talk about, sometimes we need more of something, but then the goal is to come get you to a maintenance support where it's, a lot less of whatever you were having to do maintenance. So hypothetically, someone could bring in magnesium support when they're dealing with like blood sugar issues, inflammation, relaxation. How would they know where to start with dosage?
Well, before I had my liquid, I was keen on the Natural Calm brand. That was a magnesium citrate powder.
No wonder it was a laxative.
Yeah, that's right. But what you could do with it is, put a teaspoon in some water and sip it through the day. And I think that's the key, is to take small amounts throughout the day. And I'm serious when I say you can get a beneficial effect from any magnesium, but you might not get all the benefits that you could get, because doctors for so long have said, well, when you get the laxative effect, then you've had enough. You stay there. So you never get saturated. And then, because magnesium, I think it's the top selling supplement now, according to, who's ever looking at these things. But there are about a dozen different magnesium compounds. And I'm sure you'd want to ask me about that. So I'll just dive right in.
Let's go.
Magnesium, magnesium malate. Oh, that's good for your muscles. Magnesium glycinate. Oh, you can get glycine, and as I said, the citrate and the lactates and the ortates. But those are magnesium compounds. When you look at 500 milligram doses of a magnesium compound, and I have this, I don't know if I have it in this book, Magnesium, the Missing Link to Total Health, or the Magnesium Miracle, but it's really incredible, because 500 milligrams of a magnesium glycinate only gives you 50 to 75 milligrams of elemental magnesium. So if I needed my 1200 milligrams, seriously, I'd be swallowing, drinking them down all day and on the toilet. So what I say to people when they say, but these other magnesiums, they say magnesium taurate's good for the heart and everything. And we'll take those things separately. If what you're trying to do is saturate with magnesium, you just need a picometer magnesium. You need a stabilized ion of magnesium. So that's where I come back to, my magnesium is the only one of its kind, but at the same time, you will get benefits from any magnesium. And sometimes people stop there and then they treat their other magnesium deficiency symptoms with all kinds of different remedies, because they don't know any different. And that's where, the marketing in dietary supplements is just over the top now. It's just incredible. You go to some of the doctors that I know. I know all the players in the field, and they'll have their website with like 200 different supplements, and they're constantly marketing people. Oh, you have to get this ashwagandha. Oh, you have to get alpha lipoic acid. Oh, you have on and on and on. Whereas if common sense would reign, it would tell you just need the building blocks. And that's all I work with. I just work with the minerals. There's a multiple mineral that I made after the magnesium, 12 trace minerals. 9 of them are required to make thyroid hormones. what is, besides, there's the sex hormones, there's adrenals, there's thyroid, and there's pancreas and the insulin business, kind of like a quadruped. And the thyroid, if you don't have the minerals, in allopathic medicine and in alternative medicine, they wait for your thyroid to completely die, and then they give you thyroid hormone replacement, which is never enough because it doesn't have the minerals. It's just giving you, some of the hormones. So it's about the building blocks. So there's our minerals, but I start with sea salt.
Oh,
If I can get a
I
person
love you.
hydrated, yeah, if I can get them hydrated with a good sea salt, it starts to really open everything up, because the cells need water.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for the water to go into cells, as osmosis works, you have to have minerals in the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And a good sea salt, by good, I mean, it's got to have some color to it. If you buy a natural sea salt that's white, then that's been processed and it's lost its minerals. So here's my guidelines. You take your body weight in pounds, divide that in half, and drink that many ounces of water a day. And in each liter, you put a quarter teaspoon of sea salt. But you just start with a pinch, and your body will get so used to it and love it so much. When you're in a restaurant and you drink ordinary water, it tastes, so bland. So you start with sea salt, then there's magnesium, multiple minerals. I'm very big on silver, but not colloidal silver. The picometer silver, again, it's an ion. It's not a compound that's going to land in your tissues or turn your skin blue. And the silver is incredible. It stimulates stem cell production in your bone marrow. That's why silver is still used for burn victims. It's the only thing that really treats these severe burns that people get. Silver, because it's a wound healer and it stimulates new tissue production because of the stem cells.
What?
So it's anti-infective. I started to, well,
You
should I
totally
stop?
know. I want to go backwards now. It's like, wait a second. I've only heard of colloidal silver. What silver are we talking about?
It's the process that my chemist does, stabilizing the silver ion and making it just amenable to going into the cells. It doesn't join up with anything. It doesn't deposit in tissues. It goes into the cells and does its work, or it's excreted.
So what's its work? What does it do?
It's anti-infective. I've heard about colloidal silver forever. I've used silvers, but when I got my first bottle of our first test picometer silver, I just landed, and I was starting to feel an airplane cold coming on. So I took a bunch of silver and went to bed, woke up normal. Now I kept taking it for another couple of days, but it's something that I use in my yeast protocol, because my two big things, Leah, are magnesium deficiency, which nobody recognizes, and yeast overgrowth, which nobody recognizes. And we've gotten yeast because our normal yeast in our intestines, that it has functions, but what happens when we start taking antibiotics, birth control pills, fluoride and chlorine in the water, sugar diet, we
Stress.
allowed, and stress, cortisol from stress. The yeast kind of migrated up into the small intestine, pokes holes in the GI tract, the small intestinal membrane, creates leaky gut. And now I wonder what causes leaky gut. Oh my gosh, what'll we do? Well, it's yeast overgrowth. I mean, you know how the whole gut thing got going into, oh, well, it's SIBO, it's small
Yes.
intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They totally ignore yeast. And SIBO, what do they treat it with sometimes? Antibiotics. yeast is such a difficult thing to treat. And because I had it because I had the early antibiotics. I was on the birth control pill. I had mercury fillings before I had them taken out. So I suffered from yeast overgrowth. I've spent decades avoiding sugar and wheat and dairy and all that, trying to starve the yeast. And finally, with the picometer silver, and I have an antifungal probiotic. It's made with Saccharomyces boulardii.
My favorite.
Now, Saccharomyces boulardii is a type of yeast itself, but it's antagonistic to Candida albicans. It's got a lot of research behind it, treating diarrhea in infants and children. So very safe. And then I add humic fulvic for probiotics and prebiotics, so soil-based probiotics, and inulin as a prebiotic. So I tell people you can safely take 1 or 2 capsules of this every day and not eat crazy or anything, but you can have your couple pieces of fruit a day, and you can have your dessert here and there. You don't have to be so strict, because the strictness is what turned allopathic medicine away from treating yeast, and they just totally ignore it. And the drugs they use, like diflucan, it's a fluoride drug. Now, I haven't talked about that yet, but most of the common drugs like Prozac and inhaled anesthetics in surgery, ciprofloxacin, they are bound with fluoride molecules. Can you believe it? Fluoride, one of the most toxic elements in the world. And they're bound there to make these drugs able to go through our fatty cell membranes.
Yeah.
Get them in there and let them do their work. So what does fluoride do in the gut? The microbiome that we're talking about, which is so powerful, it will break down these drugs. And the drug companies claim, oh, well, in a petri dish, they don't break down. They're safe. Don't worry. Microbiome, its job is to break things down. So then you have fluoride. At this point, it would be ions that are released, and maybe molecules as well, which will attach to magnesium. So then you get a magnesium fluoride compound that's called phthalate that binds itself with tendons and joints and ligaments. Ciprofloxacin is hugely used. It's an antibiotic. It has a black box warning that it can cause tendon rupture.
Isn't that the
and
one
I say,
that's used for UTIs a lot of times? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just over here like, oh my goodness.
What's she going to say next? What is she going to say next?
But like in a good way. It's just, it's crazy to me because it's like tying a lot of things together, because it's frustrating, I think, when I like people to hear the same thing from multiple sources so we can really let it settle in. And it's like, we talk about magnesium when we talk about, why maybe your testing came back normal, and we talk about the quality of your supplements, but it's so fun to hear it from multiple sources, and especially someone with like your expertise, just banging it in our heads of like, no, really, you probably have a magnesium deficiency. Is so important. So, you blew my mind with that silver. I'm like, okay, I gotta go find that silver. I want to see what that stuff does. Do you do that always orally or you topically? Because I'm over here like, if it's an antifungal, what about people with mycotoxins and mold? I feel like my wheels are turning over here.
Right. I mean, the whole mycotoxin thing, they got that all bound up literally with the biofilm talk, right? So then we start being so scared. Oh my gosh, the biofilms and blah, blah. When they break down biofilm, it's kind of solidified with calcium. And what will dissolve calcium? Magnesium. So I come right back to magnesium being necessary. Seriously, here's what happens after about 2 or 3 months of our customers just taking, say, our magnesium. They'll call customer service. I have a really awesome customer service. We tell everybody, call in, figure out what you're going to do and do it. And then, we'll back you up. So they tell customer service, oh, I was feeling so great and now it's not working anymore. I've got a skin rash. My tongue is coated. I've got vaginitis. My stomach is all upset. What's going on?
Yeast.
And we say, yippee, your body is strong enough to be fighting yeast. You're having a yeast detox or a Herxheimer reaction. It's time for our Saccharomyces boulardii, humic fulvic, and our pico silver. So that's
cool.
how powerful magnesium is. And then in terms of taking pico silver, I take about a teaspoon a day because, I'm going to eat I live in Maui for Pete's sakes. I'm going to eat the fruit and I'm going to have dessert. So I take some silver and my Flora product every day. And otherwise, like you could douche with it. You can put it in your eyes, in your ears. You can gargle with it. You can get a cute little handheld nebulizer and inhale it. I have my little nebulizer in my kitchen and I inhale for about 2 or 3 minutes every day. And that it has antiviral, anti-yeast, antibacterial properties because I fully saturated with yeast. I have so much yeast from, as I said, antibiotics, birth control pills, stress, sugar, etc., that if I eat, extra desserts, if we have visitors or whatever, I'll get staphylococcal nasal boils. And I first started getting them when I first went to hospital practice, not practice, but during my, I guess it's clerkship, because yeast is everywhere and antibiotic resistant bacteria are everywhere. So my tell when I have too much yeast is these little nasal boils. I don't get them anymore. Other people, it will be a rash because there are 78 different toxins in yeast that have to be eliminated. So if we have this leaky gut and those toxins get disseminated through the body, that's your brain fog. That's skin rashes that even resemble psoriasis. There are chemicals, there's alcohols produced by yeast. That's why when a person has yeast overgrowth, they can't drink. Alcohol just goes right to your knees. One drink and you're done. That's my situation because you're producing alcohol with your yeast. Yeast overgrowth is really huge and it's totally ignored. I mean, there are some on the internet, you'll find some people who have some sort of, oh, we will cure you, but it's usually too strict a diet, as I said, and it doesn't have the type of silver that can really get into your cells.
Yeah. Candida's tricky. Who knew we were going to take such a pivot from magnesium? Okay, so I know everybody wants, are we allowed, I feel like now, are we allowed to say the name of your brand on here or should I just put it in the show notes?
Well, I can give you my website.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Okay, so the store website is rnareset.com. And I knew RNA was important long before this crazy, pandemic business, where they're using the mRNA technology, which is quite interesting. So the company's been around since 2012, 14. My educational website is drcarolyndean.com, Carolyn. dean.com, and there I have my webinars and blogs and my radio show. I have a radio show every Monday. It's a live call-in show, which is totally fun and awesome. Part of the website is behind a wall because the FDA, we have to sort of have a wall where people will click on a document that says something like, well, I'm not an FDA agent. I'm not going to come after you.
Right.
And that's what a lot of us have had to do recently is to protect ourselves, because I think what happened with the so-called pandemic is a lot of people started using alternative remedies, supplements, whatever. And Big Pharma didn't like that because it took away from their focus on it just being about drug therapies. So people are waking up and depending on podcasts like yours to get the information out there about taking care of your health.
I agree. I'm going to put those links in the show notes too, so you guys can check those out and get all the details. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure everyone else's brain is now like exploding and they're like, I need to go back and re-listen. I need to listen to my own episode again.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Leah. And I'm going to send you some of my silver.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready to try it.
Good.